we go. We are live right now. Let's see. Panos, it sounds like there's a lot of background noise right now. Is there any way you can help us out a little bit with that?
Is it better?
Yes, that's much better. Thank you. All right.
I'm outside. I'm trying to make it as real as possible.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Life of a parent. That happens to everybody, I'm sure. So, everybody, welcome to our March Parent Conference. The topic this month is Heartstrings and Lifelines, guiding your teen through chaos and with questions that matter. Here we have our founder and CEO, Panos. Panos, if you want to just give a brief introduction, how many kids you have, kind of the perspective that you're coming at this as a parent, please.
Sure. Thank you, Gabby. So my name is Panos Efstan. I'm the founder and CEO of Dawn Health. But most importantly, I'm a husband and a father of 2.5. So the half is on the way. I'm glad to be here. Today, I would say, and for this conference, contrary to what we have done in the past, where we have members of our clinical team, I want to bring the perspective of the parent, because I would say the conversations need to begin in the households and also among parents, because we're neighbors, we're friends, we are members of a society, and as parents, we need to start having these discussions among us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. Thank you for that introduction. I'll just kind of hop into some of these questions that we have prepared for you. So to start off, how can parents recognize when their teens need more than just a listening ear, more than just kind of that backboard as a parent for their mental health struggles specifically?
Yeah, I would say, and I want to take a little bit a step back, like an intro here. We have a challenge as parents, and it's not just if our kids are mentally healthy or mentally sick. It's not that if our kids are getting bullied or not. I would say the challenge that we have as a parent is, are we right? Are we asking the right questions? Number one, right? And even before that, are we asking questions? Are we just jumping to conclusions? We have the
Mm-hmm.
tendency as human beings to want to solve problems.
Mm-hmm.
We're more likely to start trying to focus on solutions, and we skip this thorough process, which is the questioning, that it actually can take us all the way to 95% towards finding the right solution. And what do I say that? As humans, we make a lot of assumptions, right? And from my parental experience, when I hear my kid say I'm mad or I'm sad, immediately my bias kicks in, and I am like, why are you sad or mad? I mean, you have toys, you should be happy. But in reality, what I'm not doing as a parent that I should be doing is the same thing that we all require to do in our careers, in our jobs. Get down to the root cause. I need to be focusing on asking the right questions and asking questions and identifying why, right? It's okay to be sad. It's okay to be mad. Let's find out why, right? What drives you in that direction? So, unfortunately, the pace that we live in, and most importantly, the impact of our environment, socioeconomic impact, the things that we hear in the news, right? This chaos that is building up constantly around us, to want to take action, and we do that very quickly. We don't slow
Mm-hmm.
down and ask questions, and that's where the challenge, in my opinion, as a parent, lies. Uh, do I take the time to ask the questions, and am I thorough to ask, the right questions? And what do I mean by that? It's not a matter of asking the right or wrong questions here, but asking questions with intention, with a purpose. And that purpose is to get down to the bottom of the problem, the challenge that we're facing, or our children are facing. So, to give you an example, because my background, my undergraduate was in physics, so we were, in a way, uh, our education was forcing us to think about a system. And the good thing with physics is allows you to understand not just the system on its own, but also all the environmental impacts of the system, right? All the aspects that
Mm-hmm.
affect how your system operates. And when I say a system, think about your body, right? So your body is a system. Of course, the weather, your food, your relationships affect how your body operates. So the reason I say this is because it's important for us to start thinking systemically as parents, and most importantly, understand that the the critical factor for us is not to find a solution, is to understand the challenge. We're not doing that enough for our children,
Mhm.
and that's why we think that by trying to formulate our children to be us, right, or the best version of us, we think that we solve the problem, and that's not the case. So as a parent, I need to do a better job in learning faster, and the only way I'm going to learn faster is by learning to ask questions, right? So in manufacturing, going back in manufacturing, there's a very useful methodology, which is, or another word for a tool, which is called the five whys. And Japanese came up with that, and the idea is you asking why 5 times, and typically you will get down to the root cause, right? And but you don't
Mhm.
ask the whys unintentionally. You don't ask the whys randomly. So you ask the whys in sequence, and pretty much you're trying to identify the root cause of a problem, just like you will follow the roots of a tree, right? So the problem solving ability for a parent is not linear. It's like the roots of a tree. It has branches, and we'll find out that typically it's more than just one cause to why our kids are struggling. So let's take a look of nowadays what's happening in the world, right? We're talking about the word chaos, and that surrounds us as parents, but also our children. All this socioeconomic turmoil, wars happening, political instability, and economical instability, and so on and so forth. All those are factors in the environment, right, that affect our system, right, as individuals. But let's think about why our children might be struggling mentally. And I can guarantee you, and I'm speaking from the perspective of a parent, it's never going to be one cause. So I challenge us as parents to start thinking more systemically and start asking more questions versus trying to either brush it off, or trying to find the solution for our kids. This is a partnership. We need to work together with our children in order to find the solution to what is the challenge in front of them, because ultimately it's not just the challenge, it's our challenge as well.
Mhm. Absolutely. So it sounds like obviously listening is kind of that first step of learning how to communicate with your child, with your teenager. So how can parents effectively communicate with their teens through this listening and whatnot about sensitive mental health topics without kind of prodding or causing them to draw away?
Yeah, I think you nailed it there. It's the listening is a key part. We need to be. I mean, God gave us 2 ears in 1 month for that reason, right? We need to be listening twice than we speak. So as parents, unfortunately, it goes back to what I said before. We have some bias, right? We already lived our life for so and so forth, so however many years. So we think we know more or we know it all, but that's not the case, right? Because we have a perspective, and it's just our perspective, and the kids have their perspective, which we need to respect and understand. Because
Mhm.
um, what we say, for example, at Don't Health is we want both the child's and the parent's perspective when when our clinical team is creating tailored plans for the child, right? And why is that important? Because the child is not an individual living alone in a system. They're living in an right with their parent, and they're mutually interdependent. They affect each other. The parent affects the child affects the parent. Right? When I mean, let's think about this. When our children cry and nonstop, we get aggravated, right? So they're affecting us. When
Mhm.
we have issues at work and or financial stability, our emotions are different. So we affect how we see our children and how the children see us. So listening is very important, and listening with a non-judgmental mode, I would say it's even more important. Just because we don't agree with what we're hearing from our child, does not mean that it's wrong. That means that it contradicts our belief system. But that doesn't mean, again,
Mhm.
that our belief system is right to begin with, right? So, however we like it or not, whether you're a conservative or liberal, we're all traditionalists. We have some traditions that we're kind of hard coded in our brain. So, when you have now youth coming up with different perspectives, it bothers us because it doesn't find us agreeable. So, we need to take a step back and going back to asking the right questions. When we listen, we need to ask, we need to be listening also with a purpose. And we need to be listening to understand, not to be listening to respond. I came from, I would say, a very strict background. So, I was born and raised for 19 years in Greece. So, very traditional place, a lot of traditions and very family oriented, very strict family environments. So, perspectives were important, right? And if your parents did not agree with your perspective, they will most likely get mad at you, and you were getting more than just a timeout. Um,
Mhm.
so in nowadays, we need to be listening with the purpose of understanding, not replying back. And that would take a lot of training as parents, because we, unfortunately, again, as parents, we have the bias that we know the solution, that we have to find the solution. But that's not the case. It goes back to a very fundamental leadership skill set, right? In any job, as a parent, right, you need to be co-leading with your child. You need to be cooperating and partnering with your child in order to work together to come to the solution. I would say the journey towards the solution, which the ideal place might never come, right, is going to be more fulfilling for both members of that team, the parent and the child, versus the parent acting alone or the child acting alone. Um,
Mhm.
when we say, when our child comes to us and says, I'm depressed, or I'm mad, I'm sad, or, I'm anxious about my midterm exams, or, which school is going to accept me for college. We cannot just brush this off. We need to understand where this anxiety is coming from, where is the depression is coming from, and work with them, uh, uh, in a collaborative manner. We are the caddies to our golfers, right? And our golfers are our kids. So
Mhm.
we got to do a very good job being their caddy, right? Because we need to partner with them to make sure that they know which golf club we want to give them, right? But that doesn't mean we have to give them the golf club that we think is right all the time. They might know something um, that is fundamentally different with the way we see things. And what I would say is, it's okay. It's very much okay for us as parents to let our children struggle. And when I say struggle, I mean that not just give them money or buy them things, but struggle to come to to finding a solution. And that struggle is going to carve new habits in their brain. If we give the
Mhm.
child everything on a silver platter, we're not developing their metacognition. We're actually developing, we say, bad habits, right? Because then the next time they have a challenge, they're going to be looking at you and say, okay, what's the solution, mom and dad? We need to be partnering with them as a coach to asking them the right questions to make sure that we are there to empower them to make the decisions. And what is the right decision? The right decision is to take a step forward. Whether it's a wrong step or the right step, it's irrelevant in this day and age. And what I would say is the most important thing is every step that we take, regardless if it's right or wrong, regardless if it's getting us a step closer to coming to the resolution, to the state that we want to get, we need to ask ourselves the question: is what did we learn? And we never do
Mhm.
that. We never do
Mhm.
that in our lives. We don't stop and say, okay, what in the world did I just learn, right? Spending a day with my children, or doing X, Y, and Z. And that is a library of knowledge that we actually throw in the garbage every day. And there's never a greater lesson than the lessons that we learn from everyday's activities that we do with our children, and the behaviors that we see from our children, and how we resolve these challenges they're facing. and the challenges we're facing, and that is an opportunity missed, because there's never going to be a greater lesson for our kids than what the life that they live in with us. Not just by reading a book, or going to daycare, or going to their friend's house. We got to do a better job learning from the questions that we asking, and the steps we're taking.
Yeah, I think you definitely touched on a topic that Jim and I think Lauren touched on the last one, but I know Jim talked about it in that letting your kids kind of fail and that it's hard to watch them struggle. And I know my mom had to watch me kind of struggle and flounder, but I am stronger for it today. She's like, I never would have let you get hurt, but sometimes you just got to learn by yourself. You got to learn through experience. So what roles struggling, I mean, physically is one thing, but a mental struggle, so that can happen anytime from college to middle school, high school, everything. What role can parents play in their teens' mental health journey, kind of without overstepping, but still letting them kind of take risks?
Yeah, and you said a key word here, fail, right? We need to let our kids fail. Unfortunately, I would say, as humans, we're putting a label, right, on the result of an activity. We call it success or failure. Uh, and actually, if we realize it, it comes with an emotional attachment. When we have something that is successful, right? It's almost like winning the lottery, right? We are ecstatic, we're getting that, uh, the endorphins, kicking in, and we're feeling good. And when it's a failure, right? We sometimes we can reach a depressive mode. What I would say is, we need to rewrite the word failure, and failure needs to be replaced in our parenting years, which they start from the day that we conceive a child as a couple, um, until the day that we die. They never end beyond that point. And replace the word failure with lesson learned. If we see it as a failure, we most likely gonna block it, right, from our mental library, and we also gonna attach some sort of fear next to it. But if we replace the word failure with lesson learned, we're more likely to say, okay, that whatever I did, it didn't work out, right? For these reasons, so I just need to adjust my course. I don't have to rewrite my life. I just have to adjust the course. Um, so mental health struggles, unfortunately, we as parents have caused most of them to our children. And I say this both as a parent and as a child. I can see where my mental health struggles, in my younger years in high school and college, were as a result of the pressures of my parents. Right? It's all the labels that we're putting in looking back. What does it matter if you got a 3.9, 3.5, 3.0, and 4.0 GPA? Did that make you a better man, or a better woman? Did that make you a better person in your life, a better friend, and a better husband, or a wife, or a daughter? No, it didn't, right? Actually, uh, you know, it's okay to be vulnerable, right? And I saw, I was reflecting on my college years, for example, the times that in classes that I got 4.0 versus 3.0, and I wonder, where did I learn the most? Well, if I look back, my ego was crushed when I did not get a 4.0. Even if it was a 3.9, my ego was
Mhm.
crushed. And looking back, and I was like, man, that's so much better. Because that means that that professor at that class found a gap in my so-called expertise, in my knowledge threshold. And he was able to push me, right, towards a new knowledge threshold. Now, it's up to me to turn that 3.9 on paper to 4.0 in real life, which is, taking that gap and understanding what that gap is and using it to my advantage. So
Mhm.
I say this because as parents, we don't look at that. We don't care about that, right? There's nothing tangible that we're going to look at a report and say, oh, by the way, your daughter got a 3.6 on this class, but man, her threshold of knowledge, is exponentially more when I first started the class. We don't look at that. We say, Gabby, you got a 3.6. Go to your room, right? You're gonna stay there for all summer. No summer activities for you. That's the problem we have as parents. We cause most of the mental health problems. And one of the things that we fundamentally developed at Dawn Health from the get go is we're not approaching mental health as a crisis. We're approaching mental health as an opportunity for children to become more resilient and successful and happier. But how do we do that? By working and partnering with the parent. The parent cannot just be excluded from this journey, because on the journey to a better status, a better well-being status, right? For our children, the parent also is the one that learns, not just the child. It's not about getting the child better, feeling better, or being in a better mental health status. It's also the parent being more effective in their parenting skill set. Because um, where does the child reside? They reside with the parent, right? Regardless if you're married or divorced, they reside with the parent. And the parent can be either both or individuals. Um, and if we don't understand that is more of a parenting issue than it is a child issue, we're going to still contribute to struggle in this country, at least, with mental health. And instead of seeing it as an opportunity to build more resilient citizens for the future, we're going to be seeing it as an opportunity to fight crisis and chasing symptoms, which is, I would say, 99% of what's happening out there in the marketplace right now is therapists trying to chase symptoms, and they get burned out, and eventually we are a vast mental health emergency room.
Mm. Yeah. I think you were really touching on in a really good way of how Dawn Health equips the parents to help the children, to equip the children, and how Dawn Health really helps the whole family. So I know kids go through a lot, and the parents are affected not exactly the same way, but similarly. When they see their child struggle, they will struggle. So how can parents maintain their own mental health while helping their children through these mental health hurdles and things like bullying, like our last conference, or friends with SI, or things like that, that we never know, or we don't ever want our children to experience, but in this world they experience that. So how can parents maintain their own mental health when helping their children through hard topics like that?
Yeah, that's so important. I mean, how can we help somebody else, including our children, if we are not mentally strong? We will not be able to. And actually, we might drag them down, because then we're passing on the trauma. There was a recent article that I was reading. I don't recall the title of it, but research that shows that we actually, it's almost like passing the trauma in future generations. Um, and it's the same thing as the negativity, right? If we're negative, in I wouldn't say we're negative from nature, right? That's not the case. It's because we're programming ourselves to be negative. Then we passing that behavior to our children. Then we say, oh my gosh, you're so negative, right? Be a little bit positive. um, we as parents have to become better parents. And when I say better parents, we're not looking for perfection, but we're looking at perfect effort as parents. Nobody's looking for the perfect parent because it doesn't exist. We're just looking to make sure that we're doing better at each generation, and making sure that we prepare our children for them to be better parents, right, with their kids. That's the success I would say we will enjoy as parents, to see that progression of parenting success. However, to do that, that means we're going to have challenges, and we need to accept the challenges and face the fact that we have some work to do on ourselves, right? Our generation, the millennials, I would say, we have gone through, we have lived the rotary phone all the way to AI, right? So what a journey has been. Our parents have not had that opportunity, right? So I say that because we are carrying a lot of um, maybe the trauma might not be the right word, but we're carrying a lot of baggage that we need to get rid of, and not transition that baggage to our children. We need to make sure that, number one, we don't perceive mental health as an illness. This is wrong, uh, because the moment we perceive it as an illness is the same thing as putting the label failure on something. We need to approach mental health as an opportunity for us to be better human beings, better citizens, better friends, better husbands, mothers, friends, etc. Once we do that, then we're opening the doors of our mind. We're becoming more open-minded in a way to the challenges that our kids will face, and we're going to be we're going to be viewing the world much differently. And what do I say that? Because yes, we're going to have our perspective, our point of view, but we're also going to be accepting and be open-minded to our children's point of views and perspectives, right? If you have ever tried to put a puzzle together, right, you're going to find yourself at some point struggling to find that one piece, right? And automatically somebody is going to pass by you and say, "Oh, what are you doing?" I was like, "Oh, I'm stuck with that piece. I cannot find the piece that fits right here." I'm like, "Oh, it's right there," and you're like, "Oh, darn it! I've been looking at this for the last half hour, and now you're coming over in a matter of 2 seconds. You're finding that piece." I'm like, "What the heck?" But that's a different perspective, right? And actually, if you want to be successful, well, if you want to put your puzzle together faster, you have to actually making sure that you're putting the pieces together from different angles, right? You have to rotate yourself around a table, not just staying on the same viewpoint. And that's important perspective, because unfortunately, as parents, we get stuck on our perspective and our viewpoint, and we ignore everybody else's. So it's very important for us to be open-minded to maybe we need some coaching. And when I say coaching, I'm not going to put the therapy or the counseling behind it. I mean, it needs to be tailored to what I need as a parent, right? The trauma that I might be bringing and I might be dragging along in my life, or the challenges. It's the job of a therapist, the clinical therapist, to identify and tailor a plan for me. And that's exactly what we do at Dawn Health. So I need to help myself first. I need to put my oxygen mask first before I turn and I put the oxygen mask for my child, right? So if I ignore mental health, if I ignore the importance of being mentally well and resilient, I will never do the right thing for my child. I will ignore their challenges. I will ignore everything that they're facing, and I don't know if you remember from the movie My Big Fat Greek Wedding, uh, when the daughter said to her mom, "Mom, I'm in love," and the Greek mother says, "Ah, whatever, just eat something." Right? We will be like that. We will be ignoring their feelings and emotions, and their feelings and emotions are real. And I see this with my kids, that I need to be accepting their emotions and feelings, that they are real and true, and I need to work to understand why that's the case, be versus ignoring them and say, "You know what, whatever, you cannot be mad, you have everything in life more than I ever had, so why are you mad and sad all the
Mhm.
time?" That's wrong. That's wrong. So goes back to, yes, we need to be listeners. We need to be listeners, though. What does that mean? We have to make sure that we listen to understand, not listen to respond. And we have to make sure that as parents, all the lessons, all that information influx that we're getting from the listening piece, the listening part, to use it in order to ask the right questions to further understand the condition of our child, what they're facing. Even if our child comes to us with a bullying incident from school, the, our reaction as a parent is not getting the shotgun and going back to school to find that kid that bullied our child, right? I mean, maybe if you were asked me several years ago, that would be my reaction, right? And I didn't have kids back then. Now, I need to understand why. And my wife actually wrote a book on scientific thinking about bullying, and it's really amazing to see that bullies are not born; they're made, and we allow that to happen because of what they see around them, right? If I am a bully to my wife, what do you think my kids will do tomorrow? The exact same thing, right? My daughter will try to find a bully for a husband because, hey, that's what my parents had. My son will be a bully himself. So it's also an impact of the environment. Goes back to the impact of the environment that we're creating for our children. We need to do a better job listening and understanding, not trying to find the solutions for our children, not trying to find the solutions for ourselves either. The solutions will be coming to us once we have understood the problem. We're spending way too much time on trying to take action, and very few time understanding what we're taking action against. What's the problem? And that's why, as we're facing symptoms, we will never get to the root cause, and we will keep on circling. Sorry for the background noise. I try to make sure that we do this live outside. So the important thing is, um, let's spend time understanding what the problem is, what the root cause of the challenges. And it's not a problem; it's a challenge. It's going to be multiple challenges in our life, and stop jumping into a solution mode. Um, eh, we're going to learn much more by keep asking the questions, and it's amazing how we as adults, we have grown from that child perspective. And when we were children, we were doing the exact same thing, right? When we tell our child, don't do this, right, which is the wrong thing to say, but they're going to ask why, and we get annoyed and frustrated. They keep asking why, several times. Well, we're still children deep down in our hearts and our minds. We need to get that child behavior of ours out and in front of us, and start becoming that explorer, right? That the adventure of trying to identify things in life and better understand them. Just because we are adults does not mean we know everything. We know nothing. I mean, we're gonna, most of the things we know, they're gonna be a miniature, I would say, comparing to what we could have known, or what
Mhm.
it's available for us to know out there. It's very important as parents. We have to first admit that the challenge resides with us, not with our children.
Yeah, yeah. Um, this will be probably the last question, and so if you just want to have any final insights along with this question, we're coming up. We just elapsed 31 minutes, and I know we try to keep this to about 45-ish. So for this last one, in what ways can we encourage our children and teenagers to engage with mental health support without making them feel like they're forced? I know when I was a teenager, I didn't want to do anything my parents told me to, and I live with my husband and his family and his 13-year-old sister, and you tell her to do one thing and she's going to go do the exact opposite because she's a teenager. That's kind of how they work.
That's right.
So when it comes to mental health, how can we support them and get them there without them feeling like they're trapped in a box and like they're forced to go do their Dawn Health assessment every other week, for example?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, it goes back to habits, right? Metacognition. If we're asking somebody, in this case, I would say it's just a somebody, it's our kid, to do something, we first have to show the way, right? We have to know the way, we have to show the way, and we have to go the way with them. That's the principles that we apply at Dawn Health. That's the principle, that one of the main principles that we have created on Dawn Health. You have to go the way and you have to show the way. That's so important, right? So when we say go do your assessment, right, which takes you 5 minutes every 2 weeks, or complete the self-reflection on the educational article that you do every other week. We first have to do it. We have to show the way, and we have to show our kids, look, I'm doing the same things that you have been asked to do. So in a way, um, let's I want to pause here for a second. I want to take it back to the school years. I would say, you, Gabby, went to school, I went to school, right? So now when we're looking at our kids and they're doing their homework, in a way, we empathize with them, and we say, hey, I know how it feels, right? I know those long days of studying and midterm exams and final exams, right? uh, so we have a perspective because we have gone through it. So I cannot just automatically say, go do your assessment, and whatever that is, I don't care, right? Just get it done because I'm paying for it. So at Dawn Health, we have created this system where whatever the child does, the parent has to do as well, and vice versa. And why is that? Because we want to act as a team, right? So if the child does the biweekly assessment, so does the parent for the child, and that's, we say, one of the unique principles that we have at Dawn Health is we collecting both the perspective of the child as a self-evaluator and also the perspective of the parent for the child in different viewpoint. We call this a 2D viewpoint. But when the child also does their assessment every other week, what we call the curriculum self-reflection, which is a 5-minute reading. You putting your perspective in writing, 250 words, right? 250, yeah, 250 words, very, very, very quick. We also do the same thing for the parent. They complete a different article and they provide their perspective. So now the parent says, "Hey, I did my homework. Did you do yours?" Or the child. And where it's going to be exciting is to see children say, "Hey, mom, dad, I did my homework this week for Dawn Health. Did you do yours?" Right? We want to create this interdependent pulling from both parties. Nobody else is doing that, and we decided to go down that path because we believe wholeheartedly that in order for us to exit the mental health crisis as a society, we have to build stronger bonds at home. Everything else in the world is trying to pull us apart when it comes to families. You see social media, you hear the news, right? Everything is trying to pull kids away from parents and parents away from kids. We at Dawn Health, we're trying to create a system, and we have developed a system where we're trying to keep you together and working together collaboratively. Because what I would say is, and it kind of dawned on me a few days ago, looking at my daughter playing with some of the neighborhood kids, is I remembered when she was little, she was scrolling and she was with us all the time. And now every millisecond of the day that she's away kind of bothers me. And what I'm saying is there's gonna be soon time where she's gonna be an adult and she's not gonna be spending as much time with me, and I will miss that. So what better way now to have her here all the time with me and be able to spend time together?
Right on cue.
Right? Right? So
yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
I
for Dawn Health, one last thing I would say, that's why we try to make sure that it's family centric. It's not just an individual centric. It's not, we don't call our users patients because we don't perceive them as sick. We're very family centric because we want to make sure that we work with the whole family, and impact them both positively, both the parent and the child.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I've been monitoring some of our different live streams on LinkedIn and YouTube and whatnot, and I haven't seen any questions come through. So, in these last few moments, panelists, would you just like to close us out with any final thoughts, final takeaways that you would like to give our audience today?
Yeah. Joining Dawn Health does not mean that you're sick or your child is sick. That means that you're looking to build resilience and a brighter future for both you and your child. We're not hospital. We're not an emergency department. We are a very strong team that has built, I would say, an amazing platform that stretches beyond just being an application, an app, right? It's a whole mental health care system with clinicians where it allows us to make sure that we offer tailored services to families, right? Children and parents alike. Um, the uniqueness of Dawn Health is the fact that we serve both the child and the parent independently and interdependently. I will use the words of our teammate Jim. And also, you do so from the convenience of your home. You don't have to drive and skip class if you're a child, or miss work if you're a parent, a mom or a dad. Um, you can do that from the comfort of your home and do this at the hours that is convenient to your family. So, contrary to what everybody else is doing, our clinical team is going to be available for families after your after hours, right? So that allows you to come back home, settle, have your dinner right ready, and then jump into to a session with one of our clinical team members for you or your child or together. That is very convenient because, for example, I look at our friends in Minnesota. They don't have to get out in the 0-degree weather to
The
go
cold.
and drive, an hour or 2 hours to a session. That can be, and especially suburban and rural areas might not have that convenience of having uh, availability of therapists or clinicians, conveniently, next door. At the same time, our Texans, we don't have to get out in the heat right, and drive to a therapy center, right? And then also it comes with a stigma. Let's be real. Uh, it's going to be a little painful watching your child walking into a therapy center, right? Because automatically our bias is going to try to kick in and say, oh, there's something wrong with you and or your child. So Dawn Health is made for families. It's made by families for families, with a mindset that we want to build stronger households. Right? We all gonna have challenges. We all gonna have difficulties, no doubt about it. But being family centric and believing in the progression of care, we want to make sure that we reinforce that relationship between the child and the parent by depending on the tripod of success, which is the child, the parent, and Dawn Health.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for joining us today, Panos. I know I really appreciated your insights and what all you had to say about our topic today. Thank you to everybody that has joined us live on any platform that you're at. Again, to join us and get access to our platform, our website is dawnhealth.care. And you can sign up through there and get access to our web app and start this journey as your family. We're live and we're excited to get everybody involved and get this thing going. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Gabby. I appreciate you. Thank you all.
Absolutely. Thank